I've also been dealing with a lot of writer imposter syndrome. Hi YouTube! Before I get into today's video, I just want to share the opportunity to go to Facefront Blog and play the Secret Wars, where you decide to be either a Shield or a Hydra agent, and then it's whichever has the highest number, it is the winner. I will be linking how to play in the description below. This is my childhood best friend's account, and it is I highly suggest you subscribe to it. He did not ask me to do this. I just want to share the opportunity. It is currently the season 6 of Secret Wars, and it is somehow, we don't know how yet, but it's somehow Black Panther themed. And so I'm wearing my Black Panther shirt. And yeah, also he's got a YouTube channel, so if you go to that, you can subscribe. Again, that is Facefront Blog, link in the description down below. Alright, so today's video is I'm reworking my books. And a lot of this, I've been thinking about it for a while, and it's really daunting to me because I'm not finished writing books 2 and 3, but I think I've been writing them the wrong way. I think the story in my head can be told better from a different perspective, and I've also been dealing with a lot of writer imposter syndrome, so much so that it's become debilitating, and I haven't written in a long time, which I'm kind of embarrassed to admit, but as you can see from my videos, I've been focusing on creating other things and painting and sewing. This is the theme of my channel is creativity. So yeah. Anyways, I still want to be an author, and I still want to share this story. So I thought it was time to look at the first book and figure out how to make it work, because clearly it's not working. It's really long, so I can't self-publish it because I can't afford that, which I talked about in my last video. And I've started to notice as I read more and more books similar to it that I kind of have an antiquated writing style, and that should probably change. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down the chapter names. I've got a notebook here, and I'm going to be writing down the chapter names because I know what happens in each chapter based on the name of that chapter, and then I'm going to go through and figure out how to divvy these up into different stories, because I honestly think if I switched from a third person to a first person, I could add more character depth and development into the story whilst creating multiple books from my first book. So I am hoping to have a book for Apricot, have a book for Gloria, and have a book for Gregor, because those are my three main perspective characters in the first book. And I think that they might do better as companion novels, shorter companion novels. And then the other thing is I was trying to write this as a fantasy adventure, but I recently realized that fantasy romance would probably be a better category for my story, and I don't know why I was trying to force it into one box when it so clearly fits in another box. So we're going to try and rework Book 1, Apricot's Tale, Legend of Behanandra. First, I'm going to label 1 through 42 on a page, because that is the amount of chapters when you include the prologue and the epilogue. Alright, now I'll be going through chapter by chapter and writing down the name. I am filming on my webcam, and I have the book on the other half of the screen. So if you see me reaching my arm up like that, it's because I'm scrolling. It's a touch screen. So yeah. So the first one is Growing Up in the Palace. So Growing Up in the Palace is like a flashback, and I think that I'll be able not only to include a lot more from a first person's perspective, but I can have more flashbacks, and so I can spread that out in the story in the new format I'm going to try and write this in. I haven't written in first person before, so I think that'll be tricky, but I do have the entire story and all of the dialogue already written, so it's just a matter of changing the perspective it comes from. Okay, so that was the prologue, and chapter 1, The Fateful Evening. That is when the murder happens in the book, and when Apricot and Gloria need to flee the palace. Chapter 2 is Preparations. So this is Apricot's real first time outside of, she's been outside of the palace, but she hasn't mingled with the common people in their own environment before. Chapter 3 is called Prince Charming. He's not charming. He's awful. Which I might end up cutting, because I can use flashbacks from this point on, or in the new format, to explain who Prince Christopher is, whereas this is like a singular chapter that follows him, and there's not any other chapters that follow him, so that probably didn't make a lot of sense. Okay, chapter 4 is called Fresh Meat. And that is when Apricot's the princess, she's the MC. She tries to hunt for them, because they're like in the forest now. And she tries to hunt, she does kill a deer, but then a bunch of wolves come. Okay, chapter 5 is Prisoner. That's when Gloria's family gets taken hostage, and that's when we get to see things from Gregor's perspective. Chapter 6 is called Fine, all caps with an exclamation point. And I love this chapter, and I can't wait to write it from both perspectives, because this is the big fight between the friends that gets them to split up for the time being. And it's really awful, and I've actually had someone cry when they read it, which I feel really bad about, but at the same time, the fact that my writing was able to evoke that kind of emotion, yeah, I just feel so successful with that. And yeah, it's a good fight. I actually originally erased this entire chapter and rewrote it, because I didn't like how I had done the original argument, and I spent just like an entire day watching every fight and argument scene that I could find from movies on YouTube, and writing down like how both parties can be wrong and how both parties can be right at the same time. So that was my initial goal with that, and I think it's a good chapter. It just needs to be written in first person view. Chapter 7 is A Plan. Chapter 8 is called Alone. Oh, that chapter is paging a bit. It's a short chapter. Chapter 9, that might be a good chapter to throw some flashbacks in. Yeah. Chapter 9 is called The Escape. And at this point, Gloria's family have been arrested for helping them escape, and now they need to escape. Okay, chapter 10 is called Hopelessness. Chapter 11 is called Golly. It's the name of a creature. And so at this point, this is the chapter where we meet the love interest and find out that magic exists. Or, no, start to figure out. We don't find out until a little bit later. Okay, chapter 12 is called The Bandit and the Barmaid. And it is a short story unto itself. And I was going to cut it, but a friend begged me not to, because it is the love story of Gloria's parents, and it is just darling. And this friend was like, if you take this out, I'm never going to buy this book. So, yeah. Actually, same friend who does Facefront blog. Okay. The next one, chapter 13, A Beaver. It's a cute little romantic chapter. I actually based it off of an experience I had with my husband when we were starting to hang out before we were official. And we were sitting on a riverbank and a beaver swam by, and we were just captivated, and then we realized how close we were sitting. Okay, chapter 14 is Stuck. And this is when Apricot tries to do chores on her own and has no clue and ends up just like stuck in the mud, and it's hilarious. Chapter 15 is A Truth Lost in History, and this is when magic is truly, truly revealed. Lost in History. I mentioned in the last video I did that in this world, magic was persecuted in the past until it had to become completely secret. And so she's grown up with stories of magic and stuff, but she considered it just like we would in our world to just be stories, where she believed in it as like a little kid, and then she realized it wasn't real, and now she's like, oh wait, it is real, holy crap. And her love interest can use it because he's a warlock. Okay, chapter 16, The Lost Message. And this is the chapter that starts Gloria wanting to rejoin Apricot. Chapter 17 is Duel on the Plains. And this is when things start to amp up more. And we start to get an idea of why the murder happened, which we still have no information about because Apricot and Gloria were blamed and have been on the run ever since then and haven't been in the kingdoms. So, yeah. Chapter 18 is Secret of the Plains. And this is when they find a society that lives separate from either the North or South Kingdom, which are the kingdoms that make up the land of Behanandra. And these people like to just take information and write it down because they basically live in the basement of an old, abandoned, burned down library, which is huge, obviously inspired by the Library of Alexandria. Yep. And they call it Plainstown because it's out on the plains. Okay, chapter 19 is the threat and strategy. So this is a good chapter for Gloria. This is when she really starts to shine and is able to start taking a hold of her own life, but also her own talents, and have that be recognized. How long is this chapter? This is a long chapter. Okay, chapter 20, Preparing to Go. So this is, oh, hang on. Spam. Okay, where were we? Okay, Preparing to Go. It's a chapter where Apricot and Jasper are getting ready to set out on their part of the journey, and they're trying to figure out what to pack, where to go, all of that. And they've reached a bump in the road that they can't really figure out because they need more than they can pack. Okay, chapter 21, Ruby, Red, Luck, and Love, which will be divided into, because it has both Apricot and Gloria's perspective in it, and it is going to have to be cut into the different stories. Ruby, Red, Luck, and Live. So that it has Gloria's wedding in it, and involves a magical ruby. Because rubies can contain magic, of course. Why wouldn't they be able to? Chapter 22, To the South. This is a Gregor chapter. To the South. And they are headed south, obviously, to the South Kingdom, to pirate a boat. Not that they pirated it right then, but yeah. Chapter 23, Windows and Rigging. Another Gregor chapter where he is trying to get what they need in order to steal the ship. They have to steal something else first. Chapter 24, In Command. That's when Gloria becomes one of the leaders. Chapter 25, Belvoir and Brian. And these are the legends, two different legends that are so important. One of them gets told and one of them gets read. Both are following Apricot because Jasper is sharing them. Chapter 26, Corpse. So this is the second or third, depending on if you count animal deaths, because the dog died earlier in the book. Second or third death in the book, and it was so gruesome that after I wrote it, I felt really bad, and I just sat outside for a while. Because I was like, I can't believe I just wrote that. Okay, chapter 27, Salt, Wind, and Waves. Salt, Wind, and Waves. Chapter 28, Dark Madness. I'm going to share less and less because we're getting into spoiler territory. Chapter 29, The First Snow. Dragons. Dragon, 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 dragon. There's a dragon in that chapter. Chapter 30, Nucks. G-N-U-C-K-S. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Nucks are a creature I invented in my mind. Basically, they're like a blob of flesh. And they're really dumb. They don't have eyes. They live in caves and they eat algae. They're really rare to find because they are so dumb. But they're a good source of food and warmth. Yeah. Chapter 31, Stormy Seas. Nucks are cute. I think they're cute. If I could explain that. My writer's workshop wasn't so sure about them until I photoshopped one. Which still wasn't that accurate. I think it'd be more accurate to be like, it's a pillow that's alive and it will snuggle you. But you could also cook it. Okay, chapter 32, The Magi Village. Of course, when a non-magic shows up at a Magi village that was secret and they live there because their ancestors were persecuted, they will in turn persecute the non-magic person, who happens to be royalty in this case, so they hate her more for no reason, even though she is not responsible for what her ancestors did. Chapter 33, A Leader Born and Bred. A leader born and bred, and that is B-R-E-A-D, because it's actually about bread, the food, not a born and bred, B-R-E-D. Yeah. And that is when Gloria's husband is able to showcase his skills and is able to start leading alongside his wife. Chapter 34, The Little Mermaid. Yeah, I know. I like fairy tales. I like putting them into my story. But with the twists of my own world. Chapter 35, Frigid Waters. Is this? Is this the chapter? Whoa. This is the chapter. Okay, this is the first time that they don't kiss, but there's some mouth-to-mouth resuscitation going on. But I don't consider that kissing. But the unconscious person doesn't know about it at first, and it leads to actually a little loophole later on. Okay, chapter 36, Doorman's Secret. Doorman is a volcano, and it is where the mermaids live, and Doorman is the goddess they worship, and Doorman is basically, they believe that that volcano is like a way to connect with her, which is why they live around it, even though there's no humans around and they need humans to breed, so they always have to wait for ships to go by. Chapter 37, Darkness. Oh, this is a depressing chapter, and the MC tries to take her life. It doesn't work. She tries. Chapter 38, Cataclysm. So this chapter is written through all three perspectives, and it is pretty much the climax of the book, but not the resolution. Can't say more than that. I won't give too much away. But suffice it to say, there is war in one part, a tsunami in the other part, and an epic sword fight in the last part. Okay. And something really unexpected that it goes back to that loophole I was saying. Okay, chapter 39, Return. We gotta get back home after the climax. Everyone's in different places. We gotta come back together. Starting the resolution. Chapter 40, Apricot's Wedding. The real question is she going to marry the person she's betrothed to in order to save her people from how horrible that person is going to be as king, or is she going to follow her heart? If you know me, you can guess the answer. Oh, how long is this chapter? Scrolling. And Epilogue, the king, the queen, and the prince. Alright. One thing I did with my epilogue, because this is all book 1, and I actually wrote a book 2, but I'm going to be dividing book 1 into separate books, and probably continuing because Gregor's story was going to be book 2, but I'll probably actually continue his story. There'll just be a time jump in there. But what I did in this original book was I had the last part of the epilogue is from one perspective, and then in the second book it jumps to that same part, that same dialogue, but from the other perspective, which I thought was clever and my friends thought was clever at Writer's Workshop. Yeah, so the next thing I'm going to do is, now that I've got all those chapter titles written down, I'm going to go through with colored pencils, and I'm going to do pink for Apricot, red for Gloria, and green for Gregor, and figure out which ones belong in which book so that I can start putting those together and start retyping it. Yeah, so let me go get my colored pencils. Okay, I actually decided to go with blue for Apricot because pink and red are really similar looking, and I want this to be very apparent when I look at it, which is what. So growing up in the palace, there is going to be both perspective in Apricot and in Gloria. Not in Gregor, he wasn't born yet.
He is, let's see, he's a lot younger than his sister. He is 10 years old in the book, and she is 19, so yeah, he's like 9 years younger than her. Okay, Fateful Evening also will have 2 perspectives in it, so I will highlight it in 2 colors. Preparations is the same. Prince Charming, in quotes, he's not very charming, will be in Apricot. Fresh Meat has both perspectives. Prisoner is in Gregor's perspective, so that's our first Gregor. Oh, actually, Preparations will have some Gregor perspective too, just a little bit. Okay, Fine goes in both perspectives. Again, I cannot wait to write that fight in first person from 2 different perspectives. Okay, because we'll get a lot of the internal thoughts that we didn't get before. Yeah. Okay, Eclan. That is going to be Gloria. Alone is going to be Apricot. The Escape is going to be Gregor. Hopelessness is Apricot, and I think there's a little bit of perspective from Gloria there. Golly is completely from Apricot's point of view. The Bandit and the Barmaid will be from Gloria and Gregor's point of view. The Beaver, Apricot. Stuck, Apricot, A True Fossil Time, Apricot. That's why she's the main character. The Lost Message is from Gloria's perspective. Duel on the Plains will actually have all three. Mostly Apricot, though. But I think that will be a good one for Gloria, too, because that's when she is able to meet back up with her love interest, Peter. Secret of the Plains. Again, all three will have part of that, which I haven't actually shared Gregor's perspective of what was going on at that time, so that'll be nice. Threat and Strategy, again, all three. Preparing to Go is Apricot. Ruby Red, Luck and Love will have all three. Kinda does already, it's just a matter of changing that format again. To the South is all Gregor. Windows and Rigging is all Gregor. And Command is all Gloria. Now they're separate and they won't be combined until the end. Belwar and Brian is Apricot. Corpse, Gloria. Salt, Wind and Waves, Gregor. Dark Madness, Gloria. The First Snow, Apricot. Nux, Apricot. Stormy Seas, Gregor. The Magi Village, Apricot. The Leader Born and Bred, Gloria. Technically, she's not there. That's more of Peter's perspective, but Peter is paired with Gloria. I'll figure out how to get in there. Oh, I can have Peter tell her what happened! Yeah. Okay, The Little Mermaid, Gregor. Frigid Waters, Apricot. Dormander's Secret, Gregor. Darkness, Apricot. Cataclysm is all three. Granted, they're still separate at this point, it's just they all have parts in that chapter. Return is Apricot and Gregor from their own perspectives, because Gregor went to the South Sea, which is called the Relon Sea, and Apricot went to the Hoylung Sea, which is up in the north. Apricot's Wedding. Right now I have that completely from Apricot's point of view, but I want to put Gloria's point of view in there. Oh my gosh, to see what she was doing the whole time. Because I know what she was doing, but it's not in the book, because it wasn't plot relevant, and it was better to have it be twist. And the King, Queen, and Prince, that will be all three perspectives.
Okay, so this is what I've ended up with. It's all color-coded, and now I'm going to end the video here, but that is how I'm reworking my book, my first book, into 3 different books, and I'll probably be reworking book 2 so that I can combine it with this, with Gregor's story, because honestly, after I was almost done with book 2 with writing it, and I decided to actually kind of rework my plot, or rework how I was writing it, because I'd strayed off of my original plot so far that I just needed to write down what was going to happen in the rest of the book. So I wrote chapter summaries for the rest of the book. I didn't finish writing those, but after doing that, I don't like my book, and I think it could be redone. Because Gregor, it skips ahead 10 years, and it's to the point where he wants to explore, because Behanandra is so separate from the rest of the world. They want to know what's out there. They don't know any other kingdoms aside from Behanandra, which is North and South Kingdom. I don't think I executed it well at all. So I want to completely redo that story. I'll do that in another video. I don't know when that will be, because I'm going to work on this first, so that could be a long time in the future. Anyways, don't forget to stay creative. Thanks for watching. Bye.